And people defend this $1 trillion minted object. They die, suffer, they go hungry for the cause apparent, with the elimination of traditional economics, choosing instead coins instead of currency, value rather than the dollar and other cents. From a person who studied economics at prestigious universities and colleges out east, who has more fans and more followers and more people willing to support her needs than there are monkeys to lead me to the woods, apes to bring me to the jungle, from people who say climate change and the green are the refuge, in the plan and the goal to help the children in the future, the kids, to grow up and be successful. I talked to the doctor yesterday, and we were talking, and he was a new resident doing a fellowship. My third. In the last, I think, 1 or 2 years that I visit for ankylosing spondylitis. He talked real slow, went real calm and relaxed, and asked me over and over, "How are you?" "Well." "So how are you doing?" "Good." "So how has stuff been?" "Well." And then I stopped and I started to explain the last 8 years of what I've been doing for schoolwork. As quickly and as clearly as I could, to kind of reduce the tension in the air from his plain clothes and grays and boringness. And I got to quantum wave mechanics and light. He said, "Oh, I love physics." And got to a stopping part of the conversation where I said, "Well, light's energy." And then from there, got to stimulation. And from stimulation, I got to psychology and stopped. At the moment I say behavior. Well, let's get back to the visit. He responded. And a similar occurrence is happening now. I know a good option. You're white, you're racist. Next. But wait a minute, I'd say. I've done all of this work to say these words now. Shut up, you white, racist, supremacist. And go to the mirror and look what you're wearing now. they'd say. Go buy some stuff on the internet. Adjust your thinking. Make your mind better. Get elected and do a better job. Next, they'd say, she'd say, and he'd say along with her also, now. And very casually, they'd say, well, you've got flags you've never worn into battle. You've got masks you never got dirty. You've got hats with no story. You've got signs and no degree. You've got hopes and dreams and aspirations and only 14 cents in your bank account now. You've got a plate of food in front of you, they'd say, and no appetite from your unwillingness to be educated and transformed. There's an energy being fed to replace the calories grown in the earth and the land. And the energy being provided has to do with a voice, a sound, a melody, a drum beat, a rage. And a color seen in the light, energized by the sun. And a social group cheering one another on, voting for who they decide as a mob to rule their country, fighting against those rednecks in the woods in the Ozarks, those KKK Klansmen in Arkansas, and those gun-toting fanatics in Texas and Wyoming and Montana. And share their resources. Give one another encouragement. Reduce and explain. Talk about and join together to form a new nation now. A new state here in Seattle, Capitol Hill, Washington. And lastly, silence. Pristine quietness. A former neurosurgeon in the government who's in charge of housing for the country as a whole, for the federal government, speaks eloquently and beautifully, wrote a book I cherish and adore and love, and can still remember to this day now. Barack Obama wrote, Dreams of My Father, The Audacity of Hope, Dr. Ben Carson wrote a book about beautiful America. He helped little children get rid of their cancer and their tumors. Speak softly and gently. And get to be very relevant until there's a distraction, confusion, misdirection. And his tenacity and his grit and his determination and his ethics and his values take over. And he rests now. And then nobody goes and nobody does much else but repeat the standards. The data and information for re-elections, the recommendations for face masks and the pandemic, coronavirus from Mr. Fauci, who stands next to his shadow and stares up towards the sky, and stands over the camera and looks down at those who view his message. With the similar appearance, posture, and influence as those who use different plans and expectations and ideologies and philosophies and lectures now. People start beating their walls and behave voyeuristically. When their bodies and their brains are working independently. And they stare and they stare and they listen and they listen and they listen to their bass thumping rave music and ignore the hunger and the nutrition and the value with cooking a meal. Bodies and brains are not disconnected and separate. Bodies and brains are the only truth to the mind. And facts and hallucinations and bizarre religions They don't give calories, they don't give the energy needed to power the process and the system of being human now.